Hello everyone, and welcome back to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. I'm your host, Lasheena Williams, and I'm so excited to be back here with you all. We're getting ready to kick off a new month. So in case you missed it, last month's theme was Blueprint for Impact, crafting effective nonprofit programs. So if you missed those conversations, I strongly encourage you to go up to the guide section of the group and check those conversations out. So this month's topic is the heart of service, mastering the art of volunteer management. So we have guests throughout the month. We're going to be talking about different topics and aspects around volunteer management and what does that look like for organizations. So you definitely don't want to miss these conversations. So today's guest, we have Tina Nugent with us, and I'm going to invite her up. Hey,
Hey,
Tina.
how are you? Thank you so much for having
Good. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. So for our new guests that's tuning in, do you mind just kind of kickstarting the conversation by talking a little bit about you and how you entered the nonprofit arena?
me. Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Tina Nugent. I am the owner of Cute Impacts. I actually entered the nonprofit arena unbeknownst to me when I helped start a foundation at my local high school. That ended up getting me a really nice summer internship with Florida Hospital and into several nonprofits, Give Kids the World, just volunteering and giving back my time. And as soon as I graduated college, I just kind of I fell back in to the nonprofit community. I've been there ever since.
Oh, that's perfect. And I'm glad that you talked about how you kind of started out being a volunteer, because I would love to kind of hear some of your insight regarding, how did that feel being on that end of volunteerism? But before we do that, can you share a little bit about Q Impacts and what you all are doing working with nonprofit organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. So Q Impacts, our idea is to really help nonprofits engage with donors in a meaningful way. So that could be through events, volunteer engagements. We're teaching and coaching nonprofits on how do I get more funding by building authentic relationships, following up with donors, building those relationships. And we do that a lot through events, coaching, as well as webinars and initiatives that we are working on. So, yeah, our job really is to create a better donor experience through helping nonprofits to see it.
Love it. One of our favorite topics on nonprofit enthusiasts, money, 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 money. And I know that this month's topic is volunteer management, but I cannot, because I know someone will get me for not asking money, money, money questions before we get to the volunteer management piece. So what would you say based off of your experience is the most effective way for a nonprofit organization to be able to bring funds within their organization?
Really, one of the top three things I always recommend is networking, going out to events, and really creating an avatar. What is the ideal funder that your organization needs? And then finding that person. So that person are they on Instagram? Do organizations post a lot? And here's a little like trick that I use all the time as well. I look at hashtags on Instagram and then follow those organizations, see what they're doing so that when you make the contact with them, you can say, hey, I've seen you do this event or work with this organization. Or what's really also helpful is find an organization that does something similar to you on a larger scale. Who is funding them? That way you can
Mhm.
see the interest of different companies as well as corporations and foundations.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so now I found this person on Instagram or this organization, and this potential donor who I feel like we have something in line because they support a larger organization that also has similar mission. What do I do now?
So once you find them, I think stalking is a strong word, but see who they're giving to. How often are they giving? Are their employees being involved? And then just reach out. I would honestly say some people give up the first or second time they don't hear back, but the funding is in the follow up. It's the follow up. Everyone has busy schedules. So follow up, follow up, follow up. And then when you follow up, have something to talk about. And sometimes, honestly, initial conversations of, hey, I saw this article that I saw that was similar to what you guys are doing. Hey, there's this thing coming down. I know you guys were putting that your company's interested in doing this. It doesn't solely have to be about your organization, but how are you adding value to them? And I think those people that send out articles, newsletters, or just additional information that can help that organization take it to the next level, it's always a win-win for them and the organization and the company they're trying to get funding from.
Love it. And so it's a few things you talked about. One, you talked about building the avatar, and it's so funny because in marketing, you think about that a lot. Like, who is your ideal customer? What do they look like? But you don't necessarily think about that a lot in the nonprofit arena. And the fact that you're like, okay, for your donor, who's your ideal donor? And if I was to translate this into marketing, some of the things you'll ask is, okay, and you mentioned this is, okay, so when your donor wakes up, what are they doing? They're reading these type of articles or whichever. A good place to market your nonprofit. After they do that, what are they doing? Like, where, oh, they might be going to an early morning breakfast fundraiser event or something like that. So knowing where your donors are and being able to kind of interact with them in that type of way. So I love that you talked about that avatar and knowing your donor and where they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're here.
Yeah, we're here. And I'm going to tell you all something because I was in somewhat of a similar situation and I was kind of figuring out, I had in my brain, like, I know where this person is. I know where I know this ideal avatar. I know where this person is. They wake up, they do these type of things. They whichever. And literally through one of the relationships that I had, I literally sent them like, hey friend, because and this person I asked, we had a really good relationship. That we it's been decades, at this point. So I felt comfortable them being a funder saying, hey, I'm trying to niche down as to where my, where the funders lie. And I literally said, I asked them, and some of the questions were similar to what you said. When you wait, what articles are you reading? So they sent me a whole list of articles or newsletters that I didn't even know exist. What platforms are you on? And I was surprised they said the one they're the most frequent on as a foundation is Instagram. I was surprised. I was like, I'm thinking LinkedIn, Facebook. Yeah,
Instagram is a
yeah. Is that yeah?
and
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead. Hmm.
I wanted to
Yeah.
add also, I love the fact that you said, I asked somebody. You'll be
Yes.
surprised how many organizations I go into that don't ask their boards, that don't ask their
Yep.
network, that don't ask their volunteers. You'll honestly, you need, hey, I'm trying to find this kind of person. Do you know where they're at? You never know what
Yep.
time you can get invited to another initiative that
Yep.
might have the person you need to meet. So that I kudos to asking
Yes.
for sure.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of trying to make sure I express as well. Sometimes it's that simple. Just accent. We overcomplicate. I know I overcomplicated it because I'm over here. Like, if you saw the profile I created and then what they responded back, there was some alignment, but then there was just so much more information. And then from there, and then we could talk about this a little bit more, Tina. Like, what do you do with that information? So I like for me, what I did is I joined those newsletters. I followed those conferences, like, and then literally have a time like, okay, we gonna show up here, we gonna show up here, we gonna show up. And I mean, we got some good information out of it. So what's some recommendations you would have? Now I have this information. What do I do?
Yeah, so oftentimes as well, it is kind of weird to go on their personal Instagram, but you'll find out sometimes the organization will tag the people you need to meet. So I go back on their LinkedIn and see who they're connected to. Do we have any connections on LinkedIn? Also seeing where are they going? Where are they hanging out? What professional settings are they? Are they a part of any women's group in the area? Are
Hmm.
they a part of any kind of other groups in the area? Are there's so many groups that are going on and so many
Yep.
connections? Are they a part of that? Are they serving? I remember one time I met a lady, I saw her post, and I don't want to talk about the organization, but I saw her as a chair. So I was like, I hit up that organization. I was like, can I join that committee? And they're like, yeah. I was like, oh, bet I'm
Come
in there.
on.
I joined the, me and her laughing it up. We're still cool to this day, but it's one of those things where you have to be intentional about getting funding, especially if you know what your organization needs, because it doesn't make sense to reach out to a foundation that doesn't align with your organization. Now the
Hmm.
time you wasted to acquire a new donor is down the drain without being intentional and really putting that research.
I love that you talk about the time being wasted. So let's talk a little bit about acquiring a new donor versus retaining an existing donor. And we know there's value in being able to retain, because sometimes what ends up happening is, we get this new donor, yay, we get all excited, we're publicizing it, all of that, and then we're going to go look for more new donors versus coming back to, the pool that we currently have. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. I'm all about retaining donors. One of the things that we do, that we push, even in regular conversation, you remember meet me in person, I'm always telling people, get a stewardship plan, please. Because one, it'll keep you accountable to how you're keeping your relationships going. So one of the things that's really big about retaining donors, I want to say donors right now are retained on a 47% retainer. But I do want to say also that what's really good about retaining donors is that you can get them into giving monthly giving. You can get, those are the people that's going to give you monthly. Those are people that's going to talk about your organization because they've already experienced it. So when you have an event, think in line of, I already have someone that is an advocate for my organization. Because I haven't met a donor yet that doesn't want to talk about an organization that they give to, or hasn't volunteered at an organization. They're like, yeah, I'm going to keep that a secret unless they had a bad experience. But that's operational. Y'all can work on that. But I
Yeah.
think the importance of a stewardship plan, or even following up, handwritten cards, giving them a call just to see how they're doing, finding out what they're interested in. You'll find donors that love your organization, but they might like cats too. Okay, well, I'm going to send you a meme or an organization that's having a cat giveaway. They want you to cuddle cats for free. Just send it over to them. Give them make it an experience for them, that they know that they're valued and they're seen. And the more that they're seen by you, getting them into, let's say, for example, we had this conversation the other day. Let's say you get a donor and they may not be able to give $1,200 off up front, but they love your organization. They want to give more. Okay, well, can you give $10 a month? In 12 months, there goes your $1,200. And now you have a reoccurring donor, a monthly giver, and someone that would advocate for your organization. So now you're having an event. Can you get 3 of your friends in the room? I saw that you're connected on LinkedIn to
Come
this.
on.
So that's how you're generating your new donors, through your current donors that you have, as well as your board.
I love that. And like if a friend comes to me and say, "Hey, I got this company or this donor or this person or whatever it might be," the fact that it came through that friend and that relationship is there, like all the typical screenings or whichever I would do, is like that wall is down. So I love that you talked about now that donor's bringing friends with them. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so now I know there's someone listening, like tuning in, and they're like, okay, who's gonna do all of this? So, and I want to think about, because we have different size organizations. We have small, medium, large, all types of different size organizations and different roles that's tuning in. Um, what recommendations would you have as to the who? And let's start out with the small organization. Who is the one, if we're at a point, let's say the executive director, they do have some funds where they can bring in someone if needed or whichever, who would be the ideal person to work with, like within the organization, to actually execute? Because that's one of the things, that I know it's sometimes a barrier, is having someone that can develop the plan, implement the plan, and execute the plan. What does that look like?
Well, for small organizations, and I want to make sure I understand the question, like 2 or more employees, or what's the team size are we looking at? Or
Yeah,
does
we
it,
could say like two. Yeah, we could say two or more. Like or mainly the executive director, probably a couple volunteers. Yeah, very small, but ready to kind of start doing a little bit more fundraising. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think time management is huge, especially when
Hmm.
you're someone who wears several hats. 2 hours of sending off emails, connecting with people, and doing phone calls doesn't seem that big until it's compounded over the month. So 2 hours a week turns into 8 hours a month where you're doing that networking. And I think with nonprofits, you find, which I love the small nonprofits, they're at the heart of the mission. They want to do the work, they want to be the boots on the ground, but we have to get the funding. And it's scary sometimes to know that nonprofits live strictly off of grants. You have to make time to diversify your funding. So for a smaller nonprofit, I would say time management, volunteers. If you already have your board, making your board active. Hey, I need you guys to each reach out to a friend, or can someone come in for an hour a month? That's 8 board members, you have 8 hours plus your 2 hours a week. That's 16 hours of saying, I just need you to make phone calls. I just need you to research this. And that way you're doing the work of gaining new donors and interacting with people, but you're doing it in a way that you're working smarter, not harder in that
Hmm.
sense. So definitely
Great. I love
leveraging
it.
volunteers and boards. Leverage your boards. They know why they're
Yes.
there.
Right. Right. Also, that's good. That's really good because now it's not just on you. You're able to use your board members, or I should say, work with your board members to be able to fundraise on behalf of your organization. And then since this month is we're talking a lot about volunteers, what capacity, like where do you think a volunteer, non-board member, um, can fall into helping with the fundraising?
Oh, one, they can be donors in and of itself.
Hmm.
Volunteers are, there are, between your volunteers and your board members, when we look at the spectrum of giving and who gives, those are the volunteers are probably the most, and there's like a little circlegram for it. They're
Yeah,
are
yeah.
inner circle people that are able to give to your organization based off your need. And the more you let them volunteer, the more you let them feel a part of the organization, the more likely they're going to become an advocate where they're telling other people about it. So I think volunteers are right up there with donors because they should be donating. They're donating their time, talent to your organization. So they are
Love
donors.
it. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So volunteers, but and what about volunteers helping with the fundraising cycle? And an example of this, like for instance, with starting out in my when I first started a nonprofit, we were able to go to the university and we got interns from the university who was in the nonprofit management program, learning about fundraising in a fundraising class or a grant management class. We were able to bring them in to help us kind of do some of those or build plan. They actually built plans for us as well, working alongside them to be able to do that. Because it was semester long, they didn't necessarily get to implement, but they did have something that when someone else comes along or when we find, okay, let's say if we're hiring someone in, we could say, look, we already worked through the plan or whichever. This is where we want to go.
Bricks in the pig.
Okay. Yeah. Hmm. Yes. So yeah. So any recommendations in that type of aspect when it comes to volunteers and what roles they can play, like in helping with fundraising. So we know they can be donors, and I kind of just mentioned just now that they can also be they can help, interns can come in and help you build the plans for your organization. Any other area you think is a good area for volunteers to be able to um come
Oh,
in and yeah.
I would definitely say introductions. You know,
Hmm.
using their network, leveraging your volunteers network for introductions, events. What connections do they have? Do they work at the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center? You know, can they get you
Hmm.
a price? That was just an example, no affiliation.
Right.
And just kind of seeing, think about where you are in your development plan. So like, let's say, for
Mhm.
example, you may have a volunteer that comes in every week and they're just doing admin help. Okay,
Mhm.
well, they can send out the thank you cards for the, or send out the invitations. They can connect you with certain people. They can call the vendors. So from an event side, they can help. Honestly, volunteers can help anywhere you need them. They're almost
Right.
extension of the organization. So I would just look at your development plan and look at the things that are needed to be done in your organization. So what's bringing the funding opportunities in? Of course, volunteers giving their time is amazing, but having volunteers, especially if you're a smaller organization, that can come alongside you and say, hey, I went on your LinkedIn today and followed 5 people for you and DM'd them with messages, is
Yeah.
so helpful. You know, so I would not only just use it for their time to volunteer at your at outside of you guys doing things with the community, but also inside as well. Especially the retired, stay-at-home moms. You need those are amazing volunteers.
What about and you just mentioned something that, how does marketing and fundraising go hand in hand? Because that's a really good point that you just brought up is, you might often look for volunteers that can help you with the fundraising, but maybe it's a matter of having a volunteer who can help with marketing that comes in because that's important in being able to bring resources into your organization. I've heard plenty of like donors will literally say, I went on your website or da 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 da, like, just like we do our research on them, they do their
Mhm.
research on us now.
Absolutely, that charity navigator. One thing
Yeah.
I do always recommend, if you have an option to give, allow several people, even if it's your volunteers, to go through the payment process. Is it easy for them?
Mm.
Do they like, get other opinions? Because some people, I think we had this conversation in an affinity group we had yesterday,
Mm.
where a lady set up a PayPal monthly giving, and it was so hard for her to get that payment in. But we're setting it up because we're always moving and doing, especially with a small organization. So I would say
Mhm.
in capacity of fundraising, correct?
Mhm.
Letting
Yep.
them go
Yep.
all the processes that you already have set up within your organization, whether that be through email newsletters, donations on your page, giving them the opportunity to help out in the fundraising capacity. I'm not sure if that's in the question, but to help out in the
Yeah. Yeah.
fundraising.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I look at volunteers as an extension of the team.
Yeah.
Um, they some of them may not have the time, but I know when I talk to someone who's a volunteer, who's a busy person that may be well connected, I ask for um, a light commitment. So maybe it'd be, hey, can you volunteer 2 hours every other month, once every other week? That doesn't seem like a lot for them. And if
Mhm.
they're like, what about 30 minutes every other week? You're
Mhm.
still getting the time in, and you're getting them to invest into your organization. So
That's good. Love it. No, no, no. I love it. That's really good. Any other tips that you have for organizations that's tuning in?
In regards to volunteer or just overall fundraising?
Overall, yeah.
Over,
Fundraising, volunteers, yeah.
I would say 100% create a stewardship plan. If you don't have donors, you know, implement networking. I find a lot of grassroots nonprofits are so feet on the ground that they don't like to connect with people. Bring a board member with you. Bring someone that is an extrovert that doesn't mind talking to people, and leverage social media. So, yes, that was the question. Volunteers in regards to fundraising. So, in regards to marketing, having them
Mm.
reshare your post, reshare anything that you
Mm.
post, having them look through your LinkedIn, your Instagram. If they were with new eyes and they're looking at your organization, would they want to give to that organization? Are you telling a
Mhm.
story? I love volunteers who are great writers, because I'll have them create posts or leverage AI. AI will save you so much time. They can create
Mhm.
social media posts. They can help with your newsletters. They can help just connecting and sending DMs to people.
Mhm.
So leverage AIs and leverage volunteers, and you'll save a lot of time in trying to do everything. And remember, online presentation nowadays is the same as if they came into your building and met you.
Mm.
They are looking at how you present yourself, the impact you're making. So always be posting on social media, even if you don't even get a like. I have people, and I'm pretty sure Lasheena can attest to this. People
Yep.
will come up to you and be like, "Hey, I see you on social media." I was like,
Yep.
"It's you haven't liked it, but oh, I'm glad you're seeing it." I'll have people reach out to me. I've been following you
Yep.
on LinkedIn, and I see the work that you're doing. You never know who's watching,
Yep.
so always post on social media and have your website. Invest in a really good website.
Love it, love it, love it. And before we sign off for today, I just want to go back to something you mentioned earlier that hit me as well. Is so you talked about being able to go through the process. So you gave the example of, hey, PayPal, having volunteers, different people kind of go through that process to see how it works. And I love that you brought that up because like I know of a platform that many organizations starting out like to use. I'll give y'all a hint. We are in it right now. But and I'm gonna tell you my reasoning for not really liking it is because not only, yeah, it might be easy to give, but part of it too, some organizations do not get those checks don't come in until 3 months, whichever down the road, and the donors don't know that. You
Mhm.
know, so knowing that process from start to finish as to testing out, I'm going to put a donate, someone put a donation in here. How long, how is that process? Probably easy for them. It's easy for them to get through. How long does it take to get to the organization? What does that look like when it comes to the organization? Because I'm almost sure the donor does not know that it takes that long. If they did, they probably would go to your website or find another method to be able to give it to you sooner. So I love that you mentioned that. Being able to test out your system, not just on the user side, but also on your side. What does that feel like for the organization? Yeah. I love it.
User experience is very important, guys. We don't
Yes,
live in the 1990s anymore. Whew,
that's right.
we
Yep.
gotta people are coming online to find us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you let people know how can they get in contact with you if they wanted to reach out to you?
Yes, absolutely. You can reach me on my website is qimpactsco.com. That is also my LinkedIn and as well as my Facebook and Instagram. I'm always providing tips. I'm always just helping people. I want to see nonprofits grow however I possibly can. So definitely follow me on my social media tags and as on my website as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, Tina. Um, and thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.